So I've just scanned it. Let me rename it. This is part 3. Let me see. Can you see the screen? Means my desktop screen.
Yes, sir.
I have not yet opened the document here. This is part 4. We'll also upload this here right now itself, so that you also have the file. Just I'm checking once. Let us go back to our part. So we will go to the next topic. Okay. So till now what we have done, just let me just minimize the screen. We have gone through the basics of the conservation equations. Okay, if you see the previous documents, not this one, even before that. So we have gone through the basic conservation equations, the mass conservation, momentum conservation, energy conservation, as well as species conservation, which is a general type of conservation equation. And any other conservation equations also can be written in this form. And based on this, we have formulated a structure for the general conservation equation, which had 4 terms: the transient term, the convective term, the diffusive term, and the source term. In some cases, some of the terms may be absent. In some cases, extra terms may be present. For example, in momentum equation, we may have the pressure term. Okay. So, and some form of the equation may be slightly different. But the main idea was that we will formulate our equation in this form somehow by manipulating the equations, and whatever excess term is there, we'll just put it into source term, so that similar type of algorithms can be developed for the equations. Okay. When we say similar, it is not actually exactly similar, but the same overall process can be applied. But obviously, from case to case basis, some similar type of algorithms can be developed. And we also saw some of the important points regarding conservation equations, such as boundary conditions, what are the different types of boundary conditions, then what are dependent variables, the variable for which we are solving, then what are the independent variables. Independent variables were the variables on which the dependent variable depends. Typically, independent variables are the coordinates x, y, z and time t, but it can be different also, as we have seen some cases. Please remember that there may be some lag in my voice and in the cursor movement, and because of that the voice does not sync always with the cursor movement, so you have to bear with that. And we have also seen some other things, such as how to reduce the number of coordinates by proper selection of the coordinates. And we noted that this is very important because it leads to reduction in the computational time drastically. Okay. Similarly, we also studied what is a one-way coordinate and two-way coordinate. For example, time is typically, not typically, time is always a 1D coordinate, one-way coordinate, sorry. So the values can only influence the values in one direction. It cannot influence the values in another direction. A strong one-dimensional flow can also be treated as a one-way coordinate. So the flow only influences the downstream side. It cannot influence the upstream side if the velocity is sufficiently high. And on the contrary, we have seen that what is a two-way coordinate? When a value influences the value on both sides, like a heat diffusion problem, heat conduction problem, or typical diffusion process, or a process where the flow velocity is very small, so that viscous dissipation or viscous diffusion is more strong. It affects the flow in both directions. Okay. And finally, we noted that if we can identify a one-way type of problem, it is actually much better for us. For a one-way coordinate system, we can just have marching type of solution. So we need much less storage space. This will be clear later on when we study explicit schemes. Those who have already studied CFD course with me already know this, that what is a marching scheme. So basically we have to store data only at 2 points, the current point and the future point, or the current point and the previous point, and just replace this data with any new data. So the current point will become the new previous point, and the future point will become the new current point, and just like that we will keep on updating. Just wait for a second, please. Some important call is coming. Yes sir. हेलो. हाँ. क्लास चल रहा है सर, 1 बजे क्लास खत्म होगा. हाँ, कुछ डिस्कशन है क्या सर? बोलिए बोलिए. हाँ. Hello. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So was I muted when I was talking about this previous classes, or I not? Could you hear me when I was describing the what we have discussed in the previous classes?
Yes, sir.
Sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay, okay. So I got muted later on. Anyway, so we have discussed so some of the important things, as I was saying, like coordinate systems, one-way and two-way coordinates, and boundary conditions. So the next topic, as you will see, the next topic is just a basic classification of partial differential equations and the physical behavior of partial differential equations. Okay. So PDEs we already know what are partial differential equations. You must have studied in your BTech course. Students who are taking the mathematical methods for mechanical engineering course in MTech, they are also, you are studying in more depth. There are courses where you can study partial differential equations in much more depth, because like the entire course may be on partial differential equation. So our objective is not to study the partial differential equations in a mathematical way or in significant depth. The idea is that many of the problems that we encounter in fluid mechanics and heat transfer can be modeled using some type of partial differential equation. Okay, so this type of problems, like say heat conduction problem, or a conduction convection problem, or just a simple convection problem, all this can be modeled. By modeling, I mean that they are governed most accurately by some sort of partial differential equation. Okay, so as a result, it is very important for us to know certain type of behavior of this partial differential equations and how to classify partial differential equations based on this behavior. So the idea is that for one or two classes, we want to just study the typical partial differential equations that we encounter in our CFD courses, which are basically second order partial differential equations, and how to classify them in a certain way so that we can identify the different type of behavior of this partial differential equations. And this is very important, because then based on this type of behavior, we want to identify, or we want to develop different type of numerical algorithms for those cases. So we want to develop different type of numerical algorithms for those cases. So each type of behavior will lead to a different type of algorithm, or different type of algorithm is required for that. So as a result, we want to study this classification and behavior of PDEs. Okay. So to begin with, let me just give a few brief examples to refresh our memory about PDEs in case you have forgotten. So PDEs are equations. So I guess you can still see the PDF file. Can anyone just confirm before we start the discussion today?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So PDEs are equation where we have a variable which is dependent on more than one independent variable. For example, say the temperature, it is dependent on both x and y coordinate, or it is dependent on x coordinate and time coordinate. Okay, or velocity, which is dependent on both u and v coordinate. Okay, sorry, both x and y coordinate. So a variable which is a function of more than one independent variable, and the equation also contains at least one partial derivative of that function. Okay, it also contains at least one partial derivative of that function. It can contain other terms, but at least one partial derivative of the function should be there. Okay, so this is the definition of a PDE. So what are the examples? So typical, this first example, very common example, this is known as a Laplace type of equation. Okay, del square u del x square plus del square u del y square equal to 0. Very common type of example that you will encounter many times in engineering applications, like a 2D conduction problem, then say some potential type of flow, or electric potential. So all these are governed by Laplace type of equation. Okay. So this is here you can see that u is a dependent variable of the independent coordinates x and y, and we have partial derivatives of both like of u with respect to x and y both. Similarly, the next equation is also another example of PD, because again we have a dependent variable temperature which depends on the independent variables time and x, and this is a typical 1D transient heat conduction problem. Governing equation, as you can see, we have the transient term and the diffusion term here. This is also a PD, and we have the partial derivatives. Okay. So this is also a partial derivative, del phi del x equal to 0 if phi is a function of not only x. Okay, so if say phi is a function of both x and y. On the other hand, if phi is only a function of x, okay, so that we can write d phi dx equal to 0, then this is not a PD. This is just an ordinary differential equation. Okay, so both these are different. Del phi del x is equal to 0 is different as compared to d phi dx equal to 0. First one is a PD because phi is function of more than x, so more than one independent variable. Second one is a function of only one independent variable. Okay, so accordingly the solution also is different. So for the first case, the solution is phi equal to some function of y plus some constant c1. Okay, some arbitrary function of y plus some arbitrary constant c1. For the second case, which is not a PD, which is a ODE, the function is just an arbitrary constant c2. Okay, so it can be a simple equation also, these PDs. Okay, so I hope you are already familiar with PDs. If you have any confusion, you can ask me now. So you will notice that most of the equations, not most, means all of the equations that we have studied for the conservation, basic conservation, are PDEs. Okay. Now a very important term is the order of the PDE. Again, this you should already know, but let us refresh our memory. The order of the PDE is the order of the highest derivative term of the equation. Okay. Highest derivative term of the equation. So let us take this first equation, Laplace equation. What is the highest derivative? Here for this first term it is the second, like the highest derivative is the second derivative of u. Similarly this is also second derivative. So this is a second order equation. Okay. So we will call it as a second order PDE. This equation, the first term is a first order derivative, but the second term is a second order derivative. So the highest order derivative is a second order derivative. This is also a second order PDE. Okay. This term is a first order PDE because the highest order derivative is only a first derivative. So this is a first order PDE. So accordingly there can be third order PDEs, fourth order PDEs, okay, depending on the problem. Typically in our cases, in fluid and thermal problems, most of the conservation equations or most of the governing equations are second order PDEs. So at least one term will be there which is of the form of this form where the second derivative is present. Typically this comes from the diffusion term. Okay. So either it is the viscous term in the Navier-Stokes equation or it is the conduction term in the energy equation or it is the species diffusion term in the mass or species conservation equation. So at least one diffusion, one second order term typically is there. Sometimes we can simplify it to a first order equation in some cases. Okay. So order of PD, very important thing, which is relevant for us. There are many other types of things like for PDs, which we are not going into details, like what is a homogeneous PD, what is say pseudo-linear PD. Those things we are not going into details. So for our case, we want to define the order because we want to discuss about second order PDs. Okay. So I have again given some examples. Already we have discussed del u del x plus del u del y equal to 0. First order PD. So now we will use some notation. You might be already familiar. So derivatives are typically can be denoted by subscripts. Okay. So the derivative with respect to an independent variable is denoted by the variable with the subscript of the independent variable. So del u del x can be denoted by ux. Similarly, del u del y is uy. Okay. So I can write this equation del u del x plus del u del y equal to 0 as ux plus uy equal to 0. This is a very standard notation. So if you find like this, it means that del u del x plus del u del y equal to 0. For example, this I can write as uxx plus uyy. So double derivatives are uxx. For double derivative with respect to y is uyy. So uxx plus uyy equal to 0. Okay. So this type of notation actually simplifies the equation. We can write quickly the equations. So this is an example, as we have discussed, of a second order PD because of this first term, which has a second derivative. Okay. So which we can also write as uxx plus ux plus uy plus u equal to 0. So similarly, you can define any first order or second order PDs. Okay. So the next important thing we want to know, we should know is what is the principal part of a PD. Okay. So all the highest order terms comprises the principal part of the PD. Okay. So all the terms containing the derivatives of the order which is equal to the order of the PD, which is basically the highest order term, are comprises the principal part of the PD. So for a second order PD of this form, where you have some terms of second derivative, then just a second. Okay, so some terms of second derivative, some terms of first order derivatives, and directly the dependent function and some other terms which does not depend on this x and y, which is independent, or it can be a variable of x and y, but it does not contain the function u. Okay, so it's a generalized form of a second order PD. So in this, the principal part is this part, the first three terms, because they are the highest order terms. Okay. So for our case, the principal part is very important. Okay. So for example, for a second order derivative, for a second order PD, the coefficients of the principal part are required to classify the PD. Okay. Similarly, for other cases also, higher order PDs also, the coefficients of the principal part is actually very important in classifying the type of PD. Okay. So if we have a PD of this generalized form, the first three coefficients A, B, and C are very important to classify the type of the PD. We will see why this is the case, but let us for this moment just note that this is the case. That is why this principal part is very important. Then one more classification before we go into our like the physical interpretation. Okay, one more mathematical classification. So which is a linear versus a non-linear PD. So if the coefficients, say this A, B, C, D, E, F. So if the coefficients of the dependent variable or the terms which are dependent on dependent variable like del square u, del x square, if these coefficients are independent of the dependent variable, then we call it as a linear PD. Okay. So if these coefficients A, B, C, these are independent, this does not contain a function of u, the dependent variable u, then we will call this PD as a linear PD. Otherwise, if any of these terms is a function of u, dependent variable u, it is a non-linear PD. Okay. This is a very important thing from the perspective of solving our governing equations. As we will see later, solving linear equations is much easier as compared to solving non-linear equations. Solving linear equation involves say you can derive some strategy where you can directly solve the equation, whereas for solving non-linear equations you might need some iterative strategy, means you again have to solve and replace the values, solve and replace the values in an iterative fashion to reach the solution if some non-linearity is present. This will be clear after a few classes when we discuss about say explicit and implicit methods and how to solve linear and non-linear equations. Okay. What are some examples of linear and non-linear PDs? So see this first example, uxx plus 2uxy plus uyy plus ux plus uy plus u plus xy. None of these terms, none of the u terms contains a coefficient which is a function of u, okay, or the u term. This is a linear PD. Second, let us take a second example, practical example, 1D conduction problem. Transient conduction problem, 1D transient conduction problem. Del T of temperature equal to diffusivity alpha del square T del x square. What type of PD is this? Is this a linear PD or a non-linear PD? So this is a linear PD if this alpha is independent of T. Okay. So typical cases, this is a linear PD. Okay. Typically, if we solve with a constant diffusivity, this is a linear PD. Even if this is diffusivity is not constant, it varies with space or time, then also this is a linear PD. But if this alpha is a function of temperature, say if we can write this alpha as A into T plus B, so it's a linear function of temperature, then this becomes a non-linear term, because now the coefficient of this term del square T del x square has a term AT plus B. So a non-linearity comes into the picture. and this equations becomes a non-linear PD. Okay, and now the solution becomes difficult because you cannot develop direct strategies. You have to go for some iterative strategy to account for this non-linearity. Okay, so you have to calculate and use some older values of time, temperature here to calculate new value of temperature, and again keep on doing the iterations. This will be clear later on, but you should know that non-linear PDs require more complicated solution as compared to linear PDs. Hence, knowing which PD is a linear PD and which PD is a non-linear PD is very important. In our case, we will see later. If we take a look at the conservation equations, where is our so the general conservation equation typically is a linear PD unless some of the coefficients like gamma or say density depends on the dependent variable. Okay, or the source depends on the dependent variable. Otherwise, it's a linear PD. So, for example, this is a linear PD. If we assume that diffusivity is constant, rho is constant. Similarly, this conduction problem also, or say the energy equation, is a linear PD if the conductivity and density is constant or independent of temperature. However, for the momentum equation, the momentum equations typically are non-linear PDs. Okay, because there is a non-linearity. If you can write this in another form. So basically, the coefficient of this del u del x term will have a u. Okay, u term. So it will become rho u del x. So because of this extra velocity, it's a non-linear PD. Okay. So as a result, we will see later that solving momentum equations is different as compared to solving our general convection diffusion equation, and it is more complicated because of this non-linearity. Okay. So this we have to keep in mind. Okay. That non-linear equations are slightly difficult to solve. Once we know the strategies, we will see that it's not too difficult. It's just an iterative method, but it involves some differentiation in the solution procedure. As a result, we have to differentiate between linear and non-linear PDs. So I hope up to this point it is clear. We know what is the first order PD, second order PD, any order PD. Order is the order of the highest order derivative. And now what is a linear and non-linear PD? Okay. Let us again take a look at a few examples just to refresh your memory. You might be already knowing this from your mathematical methods course, which also has PD in more depth as compared to this class. BTech students have already studied them in some of their maths courses. Okay, so just to refresh our memory, we are looking at some equations. Similarly, say let us take a look at this equation: ux del square u del x square plus del square u del x del y equal to 0. Since this first term has a coefficient which is a function of u, it is a non-linear PD. Okay. Similarly, this del square u del x square plus del u del x whole square is also non-linear because the term here del u del x has a coefficient which also is del u del x, okay, which is a function of u. So the del u del x term, first order term, has another coefficient which is also first order function of like derivative of u. So this is also non-linear. Del u del t plus u square, this also u square is induces a non-linearity. Del square u del x square plus a sin u, this is also non-linear. Okay, so this you might get confused because you do not see directly a coefficient which is a function of u, but the sin u itself induces the non-linearity. Okay, the sine function is non-linear function, so it itself induces the non-linearity. You can also think of the sine function as a summation of an infinite series which has non-linear terms in it. Okay. So these are some examples of linear. So remember that our governing equations may also become non-linear in certain cases. So typically this 1D transient conduction equation will be linear, but if the alpha becomes a function of temperature, it will become non-linear. So we have to keep this in mind. Okay. So some more examples just to like put this strongly in our memory, like what are the different nomenclature of equations. So this equation del u del t plus t del u del x is a linear first order PDE. Highest order derivative is a first order derivative. In both the derivatives are first order, and if t is independent of u, this is linear. This is the Laplace equation that you see here, del square u del x square plus del square u del y square equal to 0. This is a linear second order PDE. Linear because none of the coefficients, both the coefficients are 1. So none of the coefficients have any dependence on u, and the highest order term is the second order term. Similarly, this equation del u del t plus u del u del x plus mu del square u del x square plus s is some form of velocity equation, some simplified form of velocity equation. This is a non-linear second order PDE. Non-linear because of this term u del x, second order because of this viscous term, okay, mu del square u del x square. We don't know anything about the source term. The source term could have also induced non-linearity. So I hope at this point it is clear. The basic differentiation is clear to you. Linear problems are easier to solve. Non-linear problems are slightly more tricky to solve and may need iterative solution. For solving them numerically, analytically you can solve them, some simple cases, non-linear problems. But if you want to solve numerically, the solution process may be slightly tricky. Okay. Any questions up to this point? We will not go into too much mathematical details of PDE. So the questions you can ask is, why is this relevant for us? Why we are studying this? We know that okay, PDEs, our equations are some types of PDE, but why should we study about what is the order of PDE or the linearity, or what is the significance? Okay. So as I am saying, the significance comes from the point of view of the solution. So unless we know what is the order of the PDE or whether it is linear or non-linear, we cannot devise suitable strategies for solving the equations numerically. So if we want to develop optimized strategies for solving these problems numerically, like the best strategies for solving them numerically, we should know this information, whether they are linear or non-linear. So the strategy of solving second order PDE is very different from that of a first order PDE. So that's why these things come into picture. And that's why we want to also classify these PDEs into different categories to better devise these strategies for solving these equations. Okay. Now let us move on to one particular type of PDE, which is the second order PDE. Second order PDE, what was the second order PDE? This type of PDE. Okay. Or in general, we have seen one PDE. This is a general form of a second order PDE. You have a u function in dependent function which varies on two independent variables x and y. Okay. And there can be derivatives with respect to both x and y, and there are some second order derivatives. Here you can see in general form we can have three types of second order derivatives. Second order derivative with respect to x only, second order derivatives with respect to y only, and mixed derivative with respect to both x and y. Then there can be some first order derivatives, del u del x and del u del y. Then some functions of the dependent variable itself without any derivative, and some other terms which is independent of this dependent function u. So it can be like ax plus by plus c, some sort of this. Need not be constant, it can be a function of x and y, but it does not contain any function of u. Okay. This is a typical generalized form of a second order PDE. Okay. This type of second order PDE is very important for us because most of the heat transfer and fluid mechanics physical phenomena that we encounter in life, like a heat conduction problem, a convection diffusion problem, a species diffusion problem, like combustion problem, okay, or a turbulence problem, or a fluid flow problem, flow through a channel, or all these types of problems, okay, flow over a aerofoil structure. All these problems are governed by this sort of second order PDs, or they can be modeled, means they can be closely approximated. These physical phenomena can be closely approximated by using some type of second order PDs. Okay, when we say model, it means that we can closely approximate this by second order PD. It is not that inherently this physical phenomena directly is like based on an equation. Okay, we are modeling them as some equation. Physical phenomena does not know any equation. Okay, some conduction is happening. It is not because of some equation. It is because of something happening at the molecular level. But at our length scale, we assume we take some more assumptions that okay, this is a continuum problem at our length scale, and then based on these assumptions, we see what equation approximates this in the best way, and the equation that approximates this in the best way is a second order PD. Okay, so the physical phenomena is not bothered with any PD or OD or anything like that. It just happens in nature. We are approximating them as some mathematical equation and seeing which equation fits the physical phenomena best. Okay, so we can have many types of equations, but whatever equation fits them best, we call them as okay the governing equation for this problem. And in most of the heat transfer and fluid mechanics problem, we see that second order PDs fit the physical phenomena best, describe the physical phenomena best. Okay, in some cases it can be simplified to a first order equation also, but in most cases in the general form it's a second order PD. Other problems also like acoustic problems, wave propagation, all these also are second order PD. Okay, so as a result, this classification of second order PD is very important. Why? Because this gives us an understanding of the physical behavior of the solution of the second order PD. Okay, so we can understand how these different solutions for these second order PDs will behave, and hence we can develop appropriate solution strategies for solving these different types of PDs. Okay, so I have written this also here. You don't have to note this down. Classification of second order PD is important to understand physical behavior of the solution and hence develop appropriate solution techniques for different types of PD. So the notes that I will give to you are very detailed. So everything is noted down. Whatever I am describing, you don't have to note it down again. You just try to understand it and go to the concept level. Okay, to think about it in terms of concept, not in terms of formula. Okay, many times people will just think in terms of formula. I will come to some formula later on, and you will just assume that okay, b square minus 4ac less than 0 elliptic, b square equal minus 4ac equal to 0 parabolic. Don't just think in terms of formula. Okay, let us try to go behind and think about in terms of the concept. Okay, so that's why classification is very important. Okay, why? Because it gives us an understanding of how the solution will behave. In a certain way it will behave, and hence because the solutions behave in that way, we will develop our solution strategy also in that way. Let me give you an example. Okay, instead of just randomly talking, let me give you an example. Say you have some equation of transient, say some transient equation like this type of equation. Okay, 1D transient heat conduction equation. So along the time, the temperature will change with time, right? Temperature will change with time, but the future temperature along the time cannot influence whatever was the temperature that had occurred before. The temperature at any point in time, say the temperature at this point in moment, can only influence the temperature in the future times. It cannot influence the temperature at the previous times. Okay, so now if I introduce a heater at this moment, which changes the thermal behavior. Right now, say something was going on and I put a heater here. It cannot change the temperature profile before this time. It can only change the temperature profile after this time. Okay. So this is one type of behavior. This type of behavior we will see later. We call it as it's like a one-way coordinate system. This type of behavior we call it as parabolic behavior. Okay, we will see later. Another problem, say you have a 2D heat conduction problem, like a Laplace equation. Okay, 2D heat conduction problem, steady state heat conduction, 2D steady state heat conduction. So you have a domain which depends on x and y and a temperature distribution in that domain. So if you induce any change in temperature anywhere in the domain, it will influence the temperature in all sides of that point. Okay, in the previous sides also, previous means in terms of x and y, and in the future sides also in terms of the future values of x and y. So in all sides of the xy coordinate, it can influence the value, and that behavior is different. Okay, and that type of equation we will see later is a elliptic equation. Okay, so depending on the behavior, we have already discussed like one-way and two-way coordinate systems. So depending on those type of behavior, our solution strategy will be different. So for the first case, time-dependent problem, the solution strategy is different. Okay. So let us consider the generalized form of the second order PD. A uxx. So uxx you remember is del square u del x square plus b del square u del x del y plus c del square u del y square plus d del u del x plus e del u del y plus f u plus g equal to 0. This is the most generalized form. Okay, you can put all the terms in this form. So you can have three types of highest order terms, either only dependent on x, only dependent on y, means the derivatives, or the mixed derivatives del x del y. Not only dependent on x, the derivatives are like with respect to x. U is obviously dependent on both x and y. Okay. Then the first order derivatives, two types of the first order derivatives. First order derivative with respect to x and y. Okay. And then some terms which can be just a function of u, and some other term g which does not contain any function of u. For this generalized second order PD, okay, we can do a classification based on the principal part, that is based on the coefficients of the highest order term. What are the coefficients of the highest order term? The coefficients of the highest order terms are A, B and C. So if you write in this form, the coefficients are A, B and C. If for this form, if B square minus 4AC is less than 0, okay, B square minus 4AC is less than 0, we call this equation elliptic equation, elliptic type of second order PD. And for this type of equation, there are characteristic lines which are imaginary, means there is no real characteristic lines. Okay. Till now, we don't know what is a characteristic line. So let us imagine that there is something called a characteristic line. And I'm just stating that for this elliptic type of equation, there are no real characteristic line. We will see later what is a characteristic line. Okay. Right now, let us just go with my description that if b square minus 4ac is less than 0, we call it, or by definition, it is called as an elliptic equation, and there are no real characteristic lines. If b square minus 4ac equal to 0, we call this type of equation as a parabolic equation, and there is only one distinct real characteristic line, Okay. If b square minus,
Sir,
yes.
so in the case of parabolic, you mean to say characteristic line is something like directrix?
What do you mean by that?
A line and it is parabola is like a locus of points which are equidistant from a focus and a directrix.
I am not sure about that. Okay. Uh, I am not sure. So you have to check, or I have to check. Uh, or if anybody
So
knows
this
the
parabola is not geometric parabola. This is like differential equation.
that is correct. Yes, that is a good point. Uh, why we call this as elliptic, parabolic, or hyperbolic equations is that the forms of these equations are
Canonical.
similar to the forms of, yes, similar to the forms of the geometric parabola or elliptical, like geometric parabola, ellipse, or hyperbolic. Like these are some, if you remember, defined sections of a conical structure, right? Uh, so depending on how we take the section of a conical structure, you define an ellipse, parabola, or a hyperbola. Okay. So there is a resemblance, or these are
Actually,
analogous to, yes.
yes, sir. Characteristic line is actually to reduce the number of terms in the equation. It is a form of transformation, variable
That is
transformation.
for solving the equation in like say using a method of characteristic. But let us not go into those details right now. Okay, we will try to physically understand what is a characteristic line, and why is it important for our CFD solution. Okay,
Okay, sir.
in the next part of this class. Okay, we will want to know why this characteristic line is important physical, in a physical way, how this influences. Okay, not in a mathematical way. What is the importance of this line? For example, for this parabolic line, not parabolic line. So the parabolic equation that we had there. Okay, I am just digressing a little. If you don't understand, the other students, we will come back to this. But just let me explain. This first term is parabolic in nature. Okay. Second term actually is elliptical in nature. The first term is parabolic in nature, del t del t. And this temperature, with respect to the time coordinate system, can only influence the behavior in one direction. Okay. So if you consider the temperature at one point in this coordinate time, okay, if time is a coordinate, and if we consider the temperature at this point in time, okay, it can only influence the future values. So there is a boundary, or there is a line across which there is a jump. It cannot influence the values. Okay. So physically, actually, there is a jump in the, or there is a discontinuity in the values, and this discontinuity actually is represented by a characteristic line. It will be clear when we describe in the next few pages. Okay, so basically from our perspective, these characteristics are some discontinuities in the highest order, like highest order terms that are present. I will come to that. Okay, so there are jumps. If there are no jumps, if there are no discontinuities, we say that there are no characteristic lines, real characteristic lines, and we have a smooth solution in the entire domain. If there is a single discontinuity in a 2D form, if there is a single discontinuity, single line which differentiates or which shows a discontinuity in the highest order term, we call it a parabolic equation. And if we have two distinct lines which represent discontinuity, we call it hyperbolic line. Let us not get confused right now. Let us define it mathematically, then we will come to the physical significance. Okay, so just bear with me here and just assume that if b square minus 4ac is less than 0, it is elliptical. If b square minus 4ac equal to 0, it is parabolic, and b square minus 4ac equal to 0, this is hyperbolic. The only important thing to remember here is that this classification is only valid for a second order PD. We should not generalize this. Okay, we can classify or generalize higher order or lower order PDs also as parabolic or different types, but not using uh, this type of formula. Okay, we have to calculate based on the eigenvalues, or like by solving the eigen for the eigenvalues we can calculate or we can classify. But for our case, let us just focus on second order PD because those are the important PDs for us. Okay. So for second order PD, this is the classification. Now, as many of you are confused, what is a characteristic of a second order PD? Okay, we are telling second order PD. What is the characteristic from a physical perspective? Let us try to understand. Not going into the method of solution of using characteristics. Those things is part of the PD course or mathematical course. We want to understand that why we are studying this, like why we have classified this. You can ask, okay, our equation is elliptic. So what? So it's an elliptic equation. So why should I be bothered whether it's an elliptic or parabolic equation? How does it involves our solution strategy? Okay. So that is the question we are trying to understand. Okay. So if it is an elliptic, so why it is important? Or if it is parabolic, why it is important? Or if there is no real characteristic line, why is it different from another equation which has one real characteristic line? Okay, why? What is the difference? That we want to answer from a physical point of view. Okay, let us take a break here. 1 hour is over, and we will continue after 5 minutes. Okay, let me rest my voice for 5 minutes. So I am back. Hopefully all are still there. I see a lot of already there. Can you hear me, students?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay, thank you. Let us continue. Okay. I have given a very descriptive notes in this part so that you have the notes with you and do not have any confusion. This is only tangentially related to our course because sometimes I have seen that if we go into I have done a lot of courses in CFD, means I have taken also a lot of courses in CFD during my masters and PhD, different from different professors. So what I felt is that if we sometimes the courses involve just 1 or 2 months just going on about PD itself, then the students get very confused and ultimately are unable to solve any actual problems actual problems in actual finite difference or finite volume problem. On the other hand, if there is no introduction to any any of these things, then that basic understanding is not clear. So as a part of this, so for our curriculum here, we just have a basic requirement of understanding the classification from a physical point of view, instead of going into say 1 or 2 months into lot of analysis of PD, which will derail our CFD course. Okay. So, and students will get scared in that case. So our target is to quickly go through these fundamental things like governing equations and mathematics, and then directly jump into solving the problems. As the students who have done the course, CFD course with me already know, and this course curriculum or syllabus is almost similar to the CFD. Unfortunately, it is almost similar to the CFD elective course that was present for the BTech third year students. Except the tutorial component. So we want to directly focus into solving equations, and because the way the course is structured, and also whatever we had done in the previous class, the students could actually solve very nice problems in their projects and get very good results in that case. So anyway, let us come back to our problem here, our discussion here. So significance of this, where was our, what we're discussing, this classification, characteristic of second order PD. Okay. So we have this, we had already written this second order PD, AUXX plus BUXY plus CUUYY. This is the highest order, these three are the highest order terms. Then these are the lower order terms, DUUX plus EUY plus FU plus G equal to 0. Okay, let us call this as equation 1. The partial derivatives of the highest order are del square u del x square plus del square u del x del y plus del square u del y square, okay, which I have written in this shorthand form. These highest order partial derivatives may or may not be continuous over the entire domain. Say you have a problem domain. So now when we consider it as a domain, consider it as a domain in terms of the independent variables, okay. Do not consider just as a space domain. Means the domain can be domain with respect to x and y or x and time t. Okay, so it's a domain with respect to the independent variables. So over this entire domain, so the domain may be that x is varying from 0 to 100 meter, y is varying from 0 to 100 meter, or x is varying from 0 to 100 meter, time is varying from 0 to 100 second. So over this domain, the partial derivatives of the highest order may or may not be continuous. It may be entirely continuous over the entire domain, or there may be some discontinuity. Means there may exist some location where we cannot solve for this second order derivatives. There is no solution. The solution does not exist for the second order derivative. There is a jump directly. Okay, there is a discontinuity. Okay. So these are described for a two-dimensional problem, two-dimensional second order PD. These discontinuities may be lines across which the highest order partial derivatives are not continuous. Okay, there may be lines in a two-dimensional form across which the highest order partial derivatives are not continuous. These lines are what we will call as characteristics of the second order PD. So for our case, for our CFD problem, the characteristic lines are lines across which there is a discontinuity of the highest order derivative. Okay, the solution of the highest order derivative does not exist at those points. So if we join them, there are lines where it is not continuous, there is a discontinuity, and these lines we are going to call as characteristic lines, and these are very important for developing, as I was discussing, proper numerical solution technique. Okay, for example, in the time direction there is a discontinuity. Okay, at any point of solution, if you consider a point of solution at the present moment, there is a discontinuity at that point. Okay, so you cannot go in one direction, so the solution in one direction cannot influence the solution in the other direction, in one direction. Okay, there is a discontinuity, so that's why it is, there is a characteristic line in that direction. Okay, so in the time direction, actually it's a first order term, so it's actually a point if it is a 1D problem, but you understand, if it's a 2D problem, there can be discontinuity in the space directions also. We will see some cases there. Okay, now we are going through the mathematics part, but we will go into the physical significance also later on, and these things will become more clear as we go on towards the end of this class and in the next class. So as our interest is on the highest order terms, okay, let us go into some more maths before going into the physical part. As our interest is on the highest order term, let us write the same equation as AUXX plus BUXY plus CUYY. So these three highest order terms plus clubbing all the terms, all the lower order terms in a single term. Let us call this as H, because we already have up to G here. Let us club this all the terms, extra terms, as H. These terms we will see are not so important for us, these lower order terms. What will be important for describing the physical behavior of an equation are these highest order terms, AUXX, BUXY, and CUYY. So let us write in this form. Okay, let us call this equation as equation 2. This is our general equation. Now let us do some more maths. Now we know that u is a function of, so u is our dependent variable. It does not mean u is the velocity. Okay, here u is the just generalized variable. It can represent any dependent variable. It can be u velocity, it can be v velocity, it can be temperature T, it can be concentration C, it can be any general variable phi. Okay, and this x and y do not denote that it's only the coordinate xy. It can be coordinate xy, it can be coordinate say xz, it can be coordinate x and time t, or any other independent variable. Okay, we can devise new independent variables also. We have seen, like by combining two variables we can devise a variable, say eta, for solving boundary layer problem, or some variable, other types of combined variables, so that we can simplify the solution. So any independent variable. Okay, anyway, coming back to this, u is a function of x and y. We can write u is a function of x and y. So the derivative, partial derivative of u with respect to x, ux is also a function of x and y. Okay, so del u del x is a function of x and y. So if we can write this d of ux, okay, as del u del x, del del x of ux dx plus del y of ux dy. Okay, this is a standard notation. Any function f of xy we can write as df as df del f del x dx plus del f del y dy. Okay, so similarly here d of ux we can write as del x of ux dx plus del y of ux dy. Okay, or in other words dux. So what is this term? It is now a second derivative of u with respect to x. So del square u del x square uxx dx, and this is a mixed derivative. So del square u del x del y. Okay, so uxy dy. Okay, why we have written in this form, it will be clear later, but we have developed another equation for you. Okay, we have developed another equation for you for some reason. Similarly, we can also write, because u is a function of x and y, del u del y also is a function of x and y. So the first derivative is a function of x and y, and we can write d of uy as del uy del x dx plus del uy del y dy. Okay, so del x of uy dx plus del y of uy dy, assuming that uy is the function of the independent variable of x and y. Okay, again you can just write it as dy is equal to, now this mixed derivative, del square u del y del x dx plus del square u del y, del y square dy. Okay, so in this form, del square u del y del x dx plus del square u del square y dy. Okay, and in this case, as long as the solution exists, as long as the derivative exists, the order does not matter. So del square u del x del y is equal to del square u del y del x. So we can also write this as d of uy as uxy dx instead of uyx, uxy dx plus uyy dy. Okay, this is another equation. So we have three equations now: a uxx plus b uxy plus c uyy plus h equal to 0. So one like this equation comprises of these terms uxx, uxy, and uyy. These are three variables: uxx, uyy, and uxx, uxy, and uyy. These are our three variables, and then there are some coefficients. Similarly, this equation also has some variables, same variables uxx, uxy. There is no uyy term here. Okay, and some other coefficients. Similarly, here also this equation also has some variables uxy, uyy. There is no uxx term here, and some coefficients. The coefficients are dx, dy like this. Okay. We can organize these three equations. This is a set of equations, right? These three equations is a set of equations. We can organize them in a matrix form, with the idea that we want to get some information about the characteristic of the generalized second order PD that we are discussing. Okay, so we will organize them in a matrix form, and our aim is to find some information about the characteristics of the second order PD. How we will find this information? We have noted that characteristics have some discontinuity. Yes.
Determinant 0.
Yes. Yes. Correct. Very good. Yes. So let me describe it for the others. So we have noted that the characteristics are some discontinuity in the highest order derivatives. Means, what are the highest order derivatives? These three variables are the highest order derivatives: uxx, uxy, and uyy. Okay. So if there is a discontinuity in that highest order derivative, it means that at those points either solution does not exist or infinite solution exists. Okay. So solution does not exist. Let us consider the case that solution does not exist at that point. Okay. So if the solution does not exist, so for this case, if we have certain condition for which the solution does not exist, we can say that for that condition, we have found the discontinuity. And from that, we can get the information about the characteristic. Okay. So for some reason, so before going to that, for the sake of all the students, okay, some of you already know that or are very familiar, but for the sake of all the students, let me just quickly describe this. Okay. What was the equation? First equation, this auxx plus bux plus cuyy plus h equal to 0. Keep this in mind. So in this matrix form, this is auxx plus buxy plus cuyy equal to minus h, right? So this is equal to minus h. Okay, this is the first equation. What was the second equation? Dx into uxx plus dy into uxy is equal to dux. Okay, dx into uxx plus dy into uxy. There were no uyy terms, so 0 into uyy is equal to dux. Similarly, for the third equation, there is no uxx term, so 0 into uxx plus dx into uxy, dx into uxy plus dy into uyy, dy into uyy. This is equal to duy. That's how we have written the system of equations in the matrix form. In case you are confused, so most of you know this. It's very trivial, but still, to remove any confusion, I am just telling why we have written in this form. Any system of equations, linear equations also you write in this form, or some algebraic equation also, when solving you can write in this form, right? When you solve algebraic equations, not PDEs, you write, say you have independent variables x, y, z, you can write in this form with the coefficients and the other terms here, and can solve for that. So this is the form. This is of the form Ax equal to B, where A is this matrix, coefficient matrix, okay, which contains this A, B, C, dx, dy, 0, 0, dx, dy. This is the coefficient matrix A. X is the this vector which contains all the dependent variables for which we are trying to solve. Okay. In this case, this is uxx, uxy, and uyy. Okay. So x is uxx, uxy, uyy, and this b is this term minus h dux and duy. Okay. So you know the solution of this. Solution of this is in the matrix form. This is x equal to. So if I multiply by A inverse in both sides, we will have A inverse into A. So this will become identity matrix 1. So I basically, so we'll ultimately the solution is x is equal to A inverse B. Okay. Solution is of the form x is equal to A inverse B. Okay. We want to know when the solution of this equation Ax equal to B does not exist. Okay. We are not finding the solution. We want to know only the case when the solution does not exist. Why? Because we are bothered with when the solution does not exist, it means that at that point there is no solution for this uxx, uxy, uyy. It means that there is a discontinuity there. Okay. Sudden jump or something is occurring and there is no solution for that. Hence, we want to know when the solution does not exist. So this occurs, as you have rightly pointed out, this occurs when we cannot solve this form of the equation x equal to A inverse B. This we cannot solve when the determinant of A is 0. Okay. So the solution does not exist when the determinant of A is 0. Mathematically, we can say that, okay, if the determinant of A is 0, the solution does not exist. Okay. This same thing I have just written here, whatever I have discussed. For our case, we want to know when the solution of uxx, uxy, and uyy does not exist. So when there is a discontinuity in the values of uxx, uxy, and uyy, the solution does not exist. And we want to find out when this happens to find the characteristics. Okay. Let us pause here for a moment. Okay. Mathematically, we know that if we find the determinant, we will find some information regarding the discontinuity. That is the characteristic for our case. Okay. For our CFD problem, not from the mathematical perspective. Let us pause for a moment. Okay. Let us think why we are like, let us think of an analogous situation to simplify this, to understand this better. Okay. Although I have stated when the determinant is 0, solution does not exist, and mathematically you can see from here also that if determinant is 0, you cannot solve this A inverse. So solution will not exist. But let us think of another very simple algebraic equation or a set of algebraic equations. Okay. So let us consider two equations and two unknowns. So we have two equations with two unknowns x and y. X plus y equal to 1 and 2x plus 2y equal to 3. Can you still hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So let us consider this set of equations x plus y equal to 1 and 2x plus 2y equal to 3. So this is a set of two equations and two unknowns. And by just looking at the equations or just by visual inspection, you can say that, sir, there is no solution for this. Because if x plus y equal to 1, then 2x plus 2y should be equal to 2. So, but we have written that 2x plus 2y equal to 3. It means that there is no solution for x and y. Okay. For this set of equations, there is no solution. So it is obvious that solution does not exist. How we can write it in a mathematical form? Similar to the way that we have seen, we can write it in the matrix form as coefficient of the first equation. So 1 into x plus 1 into y is equal to 1. 2 into x plus 2 into y is equal to 3. Okay, 1 into x into 1 into y is equal to 1. 2 into x plus 2 into y is equal to 3. So this is of the form Ax equal to b. Just now we have seen that. Or x is equal to A inverse b is the solution. Okay. So where A is 1, 1, 2, 2, x is equal to x and y, and b is 1 by 3. This determinant is 0 in this case. Okay. Because of the form of the equation that I have written, basically what has happened, even if the form was different, we could have reduced the form in some way so that one is just like a product or multiplication of the other equation. It's not an independent equation. Okay, we could have this left hand side. So ultimately, if this is not independent, the determinant goes to 0. So you can see 1 into 2 minus 1 into 2 is 0. And hence the solution does not exist. So using the same analogy also we can understand for our case, if the determinant of this term is, if the determinant of this coefficient matrix is 0, solution will not exist. Mathematically also we have seen, but physically also you can understand that somewhere this is analogous. Okay, if the determinant is 0, solution will not exist. Again, that is explained here. Similarly, for our case, solution does not exist if determinant of A is 0. So determinant of A is determinant of this matrix A, B, C, dx, dy 0, 0 dx, dy equal to 0. So if we solve this case that this determinant is equal to 0, we will get some information regarding the discontinuity. Okay. So if this is satisfied, it means that there is no solution for uxx, uxy and uyy for that condition. And the solution, it means that basically the second order derivatives are discontinuous at those points. And it will give us the information regarding the characteristics. Okay. One important thing to note here is that while obtaining the information about the characteristics, okay, the coefficients of only the highest order derivatives A, B and C has come into the picture. The other coefficients which were clubbed together in the H term is absent here. Okay, the other coefficients we had put together in the H term, that is absent here. So all the other coefficients are absent. Only the highest order coefficients are important for us, as we can see from here. These are only present in the solution process. Okay. So let us find the determinant. I hope you know this because this is already you have studied long back in class 11 or 12 for JE. A into dy square minus 0, 0 into dx. So A into dy square plus B into 0 minus dx dy. B into 0 minus dx dy plus C into dx square minus dy into 0. So dx square. So A dy square minus B dx dy plus C dx square equal to 0. Okay. This is the condition when the determinant is equal to 0. And only coefficients of the highest order we have already discussed matter for the characteristics of the PD. So the corollary is that of this is that only the coefficients of the highest order derivative matter for the characteristics of this PD. Okay, all the other coefficients are absent. So this I can write in a different form by dividing all this as by dx square. So you will get A dy dx square minus B dy dx plus C equal to 0. Okay, if you divide by dx square. So A dy dx square minus B dy dx plus C equal to 0. This is a quadratic equation for dy dx. Okay, this is a simple quadratic equation for dy dx. And the solution for this quadratic equation is that dy dx equal to minus b plus minus root over b square minus 4ac by 2a. Okay. is it minus b or plus b?
Minus, sir. Minus, sir.
Minus b. B minus 2. I am confused with these trivial things also. Okay. Plus minus b square minus 4ac plus 2a. So this is the solution. Okay. So what information can we get from this? Okay. The information that we get is that if this b square minus 4ac is less than 0, so the square root, the term within the square root, so this b square minus 4ac is less than 0, imaginary solution exists. Okay, real solution does not exist. Complex solution exists, so no real solution. So there is no real characteristic. Okay, physical meaning we will come to later, but mathematically we can see that there are no real characteristic. Okay, so
Excuse me, sir.
please tell me.
For this particular equation, it will be plus b. Plus b, sir. Yes, b has minus coefficient 1.
Yes, that is what I was thinking. Okay, so you just correct it. Okay, I cannot correct it here. You just note it down.
Yes.
So anyway, our important term is within this. Okay, so anyway, because of the square, it has become b square. Okay, minus b square. So b square. So b square minus 4ac, if it is equal to 0, there is only one distinct solution. Okay, one independent solution, one value. Okay, so some value can be calculated. So this right hand side will lead to one single value, and you can solve for some value of y, y will be some function of x. Okay, so that type of for those points, okay, where y is that function of it. So for this type of case, only one solution exists, and we call this type of equation as parabolic PD, and we say that only one real characteristic exists. Okay, one distinct form of solution exists for this dy dx. These are for two-dimensional second order PD. Okay, very important to remember. You cannot generalize to higher order PD. B square minus 4ac greater than 0. So this will have. So we will have both roots. Okay, one positive, one negative, and as a result, you will have two solutions. So two distinct and real solutions can be obtained for y, like y and x. Okay. So two lines can be obtained, and these two lines are called as the two characteristic lines. Two real and distinct characteristic lines are present. This type of equations are called as hyperbolic PD. So this is the same classification as I have noted previously, long back here. Okay, same classification, but by some preliminary calculation, we have got some idea why we, instead of going into too much details, still by doing some simple mathematical calculation, we have now understood at least why we are writing like this. Why b square minus, like what is the importance? Previously we did not know why we are writing b square minus 4ac, b square minus 4ac like this. What is the importance? So at least we have some idea now that why only these coefficients a, b, c come into picture and how they come into picture. Why this b square minus 4ac term is important. Okay. Again, I will note that very important to remember that this classification is only valid for second order PD. Don't try to generalize it for other cases. Other cases, actually, more generalized forms are there in mathematics. You can study by solving the finding the eigenvalues. It can be obtained, but let us for our case just focus on the second order PD because that is the important for us. Now the question that you can ask is, okay, we have found that three types of equation are there for, or there is a classification of PD. There are different types of classification: linear, non-linear, second order, first order. So one type of classification is elliptic, parabolic, hyperbolic. So what? So we have defined different classifications. So why are we bothered with this so much details? We want to solve a numerical solution. We want to find a numerical solution to our CFD problem. We want to use some finite difference, finite volume method. Why are we bothered with all these things? Okay. What is the physical significance of this classification for our fluid and thermal problem? Okay. Why are we bothered with this? Classification is fine and all is good, but should not only the mathematicians bother with this? Why we are so cared about like so careful about this? Okay. So to do this, we have to understand that again we have already repeated, but through examples now we will understand today and in the next class that how these different types of behavior, okay, this elliptic, parabolic or hyperbolic PD, how these different physical phenomena for each of these cases behave in a different way physically, and as a result intuitively we will develop these concepts that okay, then we understand. So for this case obviously the solution should be different because his behavior is so different from the other type. Okay, so this is the type of intuition that we want to develop physically, how this classification is going to affect our problem. Okay, so through a few examples, real life examples, we will now try to understand the physical significance of the problem. Okay, instead of just thinking in terms of mathematics. Mathematically, if I give you the Laplace equation, you will find b square minus 4ac, and you will find that okay, what is the value of b square minus 4ac, and you will find that okay, the Laplace equation is elliptic equation. But what is the what is the significance of that? Finding that Laplace equation is elliptic equation. So this is what we are trying to understand. Okay. So all the maths is now behind us, and now we want to just go into actual physical understanding, physical phenomena. So let us consider case one. So we will take a few cases. Okay. Let us take the most simplest case and the most widely used example in CFD and any other engineering problem, not only CFD, structural problems also. Many problems you will encounter this equation del square phi equal to 0. Okay. So Laplacian of a variable phi is equal to 0. For a 2D problem, we will discuss about 2D problems here. Okay. So 2D problem uxx plus uyy is equal to 0. Later on, I will say what happens for a 1D or other type of problem. Just right now, let us just focus on a 2D problem. Okay. So we cannot generalize many of the things. Although in CFD books, you will note that sometimes this 1D heat conduction problem, I am just digressing here, but I will just go back to that equation, 1D heat conduction transient equation. This equation, I hope you can see, I am showing the equation to 1D heat conduction transient equation. Directly, they will call it as a parabolic equation. Okay. But actually, this equation is only parabolic in the time coordinate. It is not parabolic in the space coordinate. Okay. So we cannot generalize always. We cannot just use b square minus 4ac. Okay, this has happened and this should be parabolic or hyperbolic. Physical point of view, we have to understand. Okay, so that is just a rough guideline for us. So different terms can have different behavior. Okay, so the entire equation may not be parabolic or hyperbolic or like this elliptic equation. Let us forget that for a moment. Let us come back to our case one. Laplace equation. In 2D, it is del square u del x square plus del square u del y square equal to 0. Let us take a physical example. Okay, steady state 2D heat conduction problem. So for a steady state 2D heat conduction problem, going back to our conservation equation. Anyway, you know, but I will simply simplify just to connect all the dots. This was the steady state. This was the equation in general for the energy equation for a sensible heating, forgetting the enthalpy term. So for steady state, the transient term was not present, and if it is only conduction problem, this convection term is not present. If there is no source term, we have only the diffusion term. So ultimately, we will only have the diffusion term. And if alpha is constant, we can take out alpha also. So you will be left with a form like this. Okay. So if k is constant, you can take out the k. So term is also 0. So del square t del x square plus del square t del y square equal to 0. Okay. Hey, you already know this. I'm just repeating. So Laplacian of t is 0. Okay. Del square t del x square plus del square t del y square equal to 0. This is our steady state 2D heat conduction. This is a well-known elliptic equation. So mathematically, you can prove it easily by what we have discussed. This equation is of the form 1 into txx, coefficient is 1 into txx, plus 0 into txy, there is no mixed derivative, plus 1 into tyy equal to 0. So in terms of ABC, A equal to 1, B equal to 0, C equal to 1, or B square minus 4AC is equal to minus 4. So less than 0, no real characteristic, elliptic equation. Okay. This is an elliptic equation. So what? We find that this is an elliptic equation. So what? What is the significance in a physical form? Okay. We can define that as an elliptic equation, but how does it bother us? So let us take a look at a problem. Okay. At this conduction problem, 2D conduction problem, transient conduction problem, steady state conduction problem. So this is a conduction problem because it's 2D, the temperature or the dependent variable varies with x and y. Okay. So this varies with x and this also varies with y. Say we have a domain, certain domain. Okay. It can be arbitrary domain also. I have taken it like a squarish domain, but it does not, you need not limit it to a straight lines. The boundaries need not be straight lines. It can be any arbitrary domain. Okay. I can take any arbitrary domain here. So this domain boundary in this case is going from some value. This may not be 0 also origin, some value to some other value in x and some value of y to some other value of y. If it is arbitrarily, you cannot directly say what is the domain extent. It will vary. But we have certain domain inside which we are solving this equation. Okay. And say it is at some temperature, same temperature everywhere. Okay. If we introduce a perturbation or if we introduce a source term or some temperature difference, some disturbance at any location, arbitrary location within the domain, say any location P, we just put some heat source or some other temperature. Okay. This source term will cause a disturbance which will propagate in all directions from P. Okay, this information that there is a disturbance here, change has occurred here. This information will influence the temperature at all other points also in all other directions. Okay, for elliptic equation, this will propagate in all other directions. This is very important that it will travel in all directions. Influence will travel in all directions. And second important thing is that it will travel at infinite speed. So instantaneously we should feel the change. Okay. It is not like a transient problem. Instantaneously there should be change. So say if there is a steady state heat conduction problem and there is some source term here, automatically it should instantaneously all the values in the entire domain should get affected. So the final solution after you solve the problem, the entire domain, all the values of temperature should be affected by the disturbance that was introduced at this point. Okay, as if the disturbance information regarding this perturbation has traveled at infinite speed through the entire domain. This is actually a very important part of the Fourier heat conduction law. Fourier law Fourier heat conduction means that the information regarding heat conduction travels at a infinite speed. Okay. There are also non-Fourier heat conduction cases in certain situation. We will not go into details. But say you have a 1D bar or 1D rod held at a certain temperature. Okay, say 100 degrees centigrade. The entire metal rod is at 100 degrees centigrade. Now at one end I change the temperature, I drop this end to ice. Okay, so it becomes 0 degree. So although the heat conduction may like the energy change in energy may take some time, the information that that end has become 0 degree instantaneously should pass to the other end. Okay, there is a distinction between these two things. One is that you may say that, but sir, the temperature has not changed at the other end to 0. Temperature changing may take some time. Okay, temperature change may take some time, but it is going to, from the beginning, whenever the change has occurred at that point, it is going to affect all the other points. Okay. Another case is that if it is a rigid body. Okay, I will give you another example. Say there is a rigid body. Okay, very long rigid body, very long rod, rigid rod. If I push one end of the rod, say it's a very long rod. Okay, it is 1 light year long. 1 light year long rod. Okay, if I push one end of this rod, when will the other end move? If it is a rigid rod, if I push one end of the rod, and if it is 1 light year long, when will the other end move? Can anyone say?
Instant?
Yes, at that instant itself it has to move. Okay.
Immediately, sir.
Immediately it has to move. Okay. Now many people get confused here. They think that, but how can it happen? Because it is 1 light year long, and we already know from physics that no information can travel faster than the speed of light. So at least 1 year it should take for this information to travel from one end to the other end, right? Because nothing can pass faster than the speed of light. So why should the other end move instantaneously? Why it happens is that in real life there is no rigid body. A body cannot be fully rigid. Okay, mathematically we have considered it to be rigid, hence it is moving instantaneously. If it is not rigid, what will happen if it is not rigid? But I push the rod from one side. So some information will propagate, right? Some pressure or some deformation, some information regarding the deformation, that if I push it, that there is a stress generated here. So that information will take a lot of time because if it is a deformable body, that will propagate as some wave, and it will take a lot of time to pass to the other end, right? So that is the distinction, okay, between Fourier and non-Fourier heat conduction also. So I will give one more example. Okay, I will give one more example. It just came to my mind. Say you have a tank full of water and a long pipe, and in the end of the pipe is very long. Okay, many kilometers long, but frictionless. So no pressure loss occurs. At the end of the pipe, you open the tap. Okay, pipe is 100 kilometer long. At the end of the pipe, you open the tap. If the water is non-compressible, okay, if we take the water as an ideal case, that it is not compressible, it's like a rigid body. Okay, when will this information be felt at the tank? If I open the tank is 100 kilometer away. Okay, but I have opened the tap. Okay, the tank will feel at the same instant that the tap has opened 100 kilometers away. If it is not compressible fluid. Okay, in real life it cannot happen because all fluids are compressible. But if it is a non-compressible fluid, it will act like a rigid body. And if I open the tap 100 kilometers away also, at the same instant, the other end, the tank will know that there is a change that has occurred 100 kilometers away, and so the flow will start from the tank. Okay, flow has to start, right? Otherwise, how will the water come out from the tap? And the flow has to start in the entire pipe. However, it does not mean that whatever the flow from the tank at that moment, whatever is coming out from the tank at that moment, has already reached the end or reached the tap 100 kilometers away. The flow itself will take a lot of time to reach there. Okay, the information has passed that the tap has opened. instantaneously, but the flow is not going to go there instantaneously. If we drop a ink there, that ink drop will travel, it will take a long time. If the velocity is 10 meters per second, it will take huge amount of time, 100 kilometer by 10 meters per second. So that many amount of seconds it will take for the actual flow to reach there. But the information has passed instantaneously. However, if it is a compressible fluid, like in real life scenario, normal water, if you open the tap, will the tank start emptying instantaneously, or when will it start emptying? Like when will the flow in the tank start? When I open the tap, if it is a normal water, compressible.
It's the speed of sound.
Yes, the information will travel at the speed of sound. So at the speed of pressure wave, speed of sound is nothing but the speed of pressure wave. So when you open the tap, there is a change in pressure that has occurred. And that change in pressure travels as a discontinuity, and it reaches the other end at the speed of sound or speed of pressure wave. And when it reaches there, then only the flow can start from the tank. Okay, then only the flow can. At the other end, the flow will start. But because it is a compressible flow, so you can still have the mass balance. So, but the information will take a long time to reach. I don't know what is the speed of sound in water, maybe 1500 meters per second or something like that. So it will take few seconds, many seconds to actually reach the information to reach to the other end. Okay, if it's a frictionless pipe. So this is the analogy. We have digressed a lot, but I wanted to, because so many people get confused when I say that in Fourier heat conduction, the information travels instantaneously. They say, but heat, it takes some time to heat the other end. The information has traveled, that some changes occurred, but the actual heat is taking some time to reach there. Okay, that is the thing. So here the information that some perturbation has occurred for elliptic equation should instantly change all the other values. Okay, so that's why in steady state problem we have a single solution, right? So if there is a source term, the solution is different. If the source term is different, we have another set of solution for the steady state problem, because we have a this point should alter the values at all the other points. Okay. So what is the important physical characteristic of this solving this temperature equation? We have not yet come to this characteristic lines or anything. We are just discussing this, solving this conduction in this 2D problem with some change, perturbation introduced. That any change should be felt by all the other points, and that feeling that something has changed should occur instantly. Okay. So all the points in the domain will feel the effect of disturbance change instantaneously. Another important point is that any change at point P influences value, in this case the temperature, at all other points of the domain instantly. So if I change the value of temperature here, all the other points also should change. In a 2D steady state problem, if you change a boundary condition or temperature somewhere, the entire domain, the temperature distribution in the entire domain will change. Okay, instantly. So another important point is that if there is any other change also anywhere if there is a change, that will influence the temperature at P. Okay, so any changes at any locations in the domain also affect the temperature at P instantly. Okay, so one point affects all the points and all the other points also affect this point. Okay, so this is very important from our solution perspective. Why? Okay, this means that any solution algorithm that we develop, okay, so where say we have discretized, what we mean by discretization will come later, but say we want to find the temperature at this point P. Okay, this temperature at this point P, the calculation of that should involve all its surrounding, like all the neighboring points from all the direction, not only the neighbors from one side or other side. All the neighboring points should be included in the solution algorithm for this point P, because all of them can influence this point P. Okay, so solution variation, some other points also I have noted. Another important thing is that there is no discontinuity in the domain. Okay, because anywhere if some change occurs, it will affect all the other points. Okay, instantly. So there is no discontinuity. Okay. So the entire solution is dependent on the entire values of the entire domain. Okay. And the boundary conditions. So the solution is continuous in the entire domain. Okay. There is no discontinuity in the domain. And hence we can call, like we can connect it with our elliptic equation that there is no characteristic line, because we said that for a characteristic line there should be some line across which there should be a discontinuity in the domain. Okay, so as we cannot draw any line like this or this or this, or any line is not present across which there is a discontinuity, the solution is continuous everywhere. You know that temperature should be continuous. There cannot be a jump in the temperature physically, right, in the x and y direction. So say here we have 100 degree, suddenly the next point cannot be 50 degree. If that would have occurred, instantly it should balance it out. So there cannot be any jump in the temperature. So there is no discontinuity. Solution or variation of T is smooth. Okay, there is no discontinuous jump in T anywhere in the domain, even if there is a discontinuity in the boundary condition. Say the boundary condition here is, say, up to half, it is T equal to 50 degrees centigrade. Then from there T is equal to 100 degrees centigrade. So there is a discontinuity in the boundary condition at that point, 50 degree, and then suddenly a jump to 100 degree. But inside the domain, even very near adjacent to the boundary also, the solution will be smooth. Like it will be a sharp change, but it will be not a step jump. Okay, still there will be some gradient there. Okay, the solution will still be smooth. And as I already described, the solution algorithm developed for solving an elliptic problem should ensure that for any point P, the calculation of the dependent variable, in this case it is T, includes all the neighboring points from all directions. This is important, from all directions. This is because the disturbance or signal propagates in all directions. Okay. In the other case, as we will see in the next class, for the parabolic equation, the information only passes in one direction. So we only need the algorithm to be dependent on the values from one direction, not from all directions. As a result, we will develop another type of algorithm which is dependent, where the dependent variable is dependent only on one direction value, not all directions. But in this case, our algorithm should involve any equation for P. Say I write AP into TP, where AP is the coefficient of this temperature for TP, should involve all the neighboring points. Okay. The other important thing is that for this type of problem, we need to provide a condition over the entire boundary. Okay, this is the entire boundary. If it's an arbitrary problem, boundary will be the entire arbitrary boundary. Over the entire boundary, we need to provide some condition, which we call as the boundary condition. Okay, as a result, this is also called as boundary value problem. Okay, we will continue this discussion in the next class. We will go to many other cases. We will see other hyperbolic case, parabolic case from physical point of view, and we will try to distinguish. With this case, we will even revisit this case and we will try to distinguish physically what is. From only seeing the equation, can you decide about discontinuity? In some way, you can decide based on this type of analysis, b square minus 4ac is equal, because it was elliptic equation, you can say that there is no discontinuity. Okay, Krishna Kumar was asking, from only seeing the equation, can we decide the discontinuity? If it's a second order PD, remember this analysis is only valid for second order PD. If it is a second order PD, depending on b square minus 4ac value, you can say if it was 0, I would have said that it's a parabolic equation. Okay, but there are a lot of cases where we cannot directly say equation is there is a discontinuity, but you can get some idea. Okay, correct, because before solving you don't know the temperature contour. Okay, but you can say, you can calculate b square minus 4ac in this case, and you know that it is a elliptic equation. Okay, so we should devise a strategy which is best for elliptic equations. Okay, so yes, you are correct. I understand your point that we don't know the temperature distribution. So hence, how will we know that we have to devise a strategy for elliptic equation? So if we calculate b square minus 4ac, we know that it's an elliptic equation, we devise the strategy. But these equations have become so well known that nowadays we already know that, okay, this is an elliptic equation, that is a parabolic equation. But if it is an unfamiliar equation, you can calculate like this. Okay. But some equations have become so familiar to us that we all just by looking, we say that, okay, this is knowledge base. This has become like this. But otherwise, you have to calculate V square minus 4AC only for second order PD. For other PDs, it might be it is different. Okay. And as I was saying, temperature has to be continuous across x and y. Okay. In this case, so obviously it should be elliptic if this x and y are physical coordinates. But for other coordinates, temperature need not be continuous, right? For example, if I can also draw this as x and t. This side is time and this side is x, as I will show you in the next class. Then you can imagine that along the time coordinate system, the temperature need not be continuous, right? So we have a time coordinate system starting from yesterday and passing over today, and it continues to tomorrow. So our domain is from yesterday to tomorrow. So this y direction, instead of y, I will write t. Here it starts from yesterday and it goes to tomorrow in terms of hours. Okay. So if at this moment I introduce a perturbation or some change, say I was solving some heat conduction equation in 1D. I have a rod in x direction, and suddenly I introduce a source term, a heater in that. I switch on a heater in that rod. Okay. So that moment now is this rod is the x direction of the rod is somewhere around here. Okay. If I draw a line around here, along the x direction is the rod, physical length of the rod, and this is the t direction because we are at today, which is in between yesterday and tomorrow. At the time direction, we are somewhere in between here. And we have introduced the source term at this point. So it can only influence the positive time direction. Okay. So the values of temperature will become different at this positive side, but it will not change in the negative side. So if there is a source term, if I draw a line across here, you will see that temperature was something different, and suddenly there is a jump in temperature, and again temperature is different. So there is a discontinuity at this line. So there can be discontinuity across temperature also if the coordinate is different. Okay, that is what we will see in the later classes. Please go through this material. No, you don't need to go into too much basics of PDs, but try to understand this. Like at least after next class, you should understand. Yes, just a second. We should understand these different cases. Yeah, tell me. Please.
Does the elliptical classification also signifies that it takes no time to propagate the information?
Yes, it means that it takes no time. Okay, actually, this time concept is somewhat tricky. Okay, we say that it takes no time to propagate the information, but actually for a steady state problem anyway there is no time, right? What should happen is that if there is a perturbation, the entire solution should change with respect to that perturbation. Okay, so that's why we are saying that if there is any change anywhere, any disturbance, any change, it should be immediately felt at all the other points. So we are like giving an analogy in terms of time, but there is no time actually involved in this equation. Okay, in the steady state equation, there is no time that is involved. So what I mean by instantly it influences, I mean that if some change is there in the domain, the solution of the entire domain should change. Okay, so the concept of time is somewhat vague in that sense. Okay, but yes, it is true that the solution in the entire domain should change when we calculate the solution for the first time. There is no time required for that solution to change. You are asking
So
something else?
time means you are talking about
Not physical time.
iterations. So are you talking about iterations?
No, not iterations also. Means see, iterations again is a tricky concept. Ideally, we can devise strategies where in single iteration, all the grid points should be influenced by say change at one point. Okay, but there are methods even for the steady state type of problems where we can develop strategies where the information propagates somewhat slowly. Means it's like a numerically we are propagating the information slowly. But yes, ideally, your point is correct. Ideally, if there is, say, if I divide the domain into, say, 100 points, okay, even in the first iteration, any change at one point, like if one point has a different temperature as compared to the 99 points, it should influence the value of the next 99 points. Okay, so what will happen is it will lead to a set of equations where like it should it will lead to a set of equations in a matrix form which are dependent on each other. So say 100 dependent equations which are dependent on each other. Okay, so when we have to solve by inverting the matrix. These things will be clear later, but your point is correct that if the temperature at some point is different from all the other points, the solution strategy should influence the temperature at all the other points also. Means the temperature at that point should influence the temperature at all the other points also. Okay. We will discuss more in the next class. We have run out of time. We will discuss more in the next class when we discuss about parabolic, hyperbolic, and again we will revisit this case. Okay. These are very interesting to understand. So date today is 11. But this PD concept is slightly tricky for some students. Have you understood the concept today?
Yes, sir.
Because I wanted
Yes,
to
sir.
go in a slow manner and did not involve too much mathematics. But at least sufficient mathematics. Sometimes we ignore totally, but at least to give you a feel of what happens. But we will see from the physical point of view, doing lot of cases in the next class, what all this means, information traveling. But I tried to give you some examples, like for example, this rigid body and non-rigid body, rigid water, non-rigid water, so that you get a feel of what actually happens. Okay, please respond to your roll call. P. Sai Dikshit. P. Sai Dikshit is regularly absent, huh? I have to send him an email. Any batchmates are there of P. Sai Dikshit? Oh, he's there. Dikshit, have you just joined now itself? I see your name, but you're not responding. I don't know what he's doing. Shubham.
So